at the Indian Army's Pokhran test range in Rajasthan. It was known as Operation Shakti. 2 more nuclear tests were conducted on May 13th, 2 days after this. The tests were led by the late President Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. The first National Technology Day was observed on the 11th of May 1999, a year later. The theme for this year's National Technology Day is Science and Technology for a Sustainable Future. And I'm thankful to Dr. Prasanna Deshmukh to agree to deliver this talk today. And in this context, I would also like to mention that IA is now having a collaborative program. The MOU is about to be signed with the Defense Research and Development Laboratory with them in some of their activities. So with that introduction, I now request Prasanna to please share the screen and start the talk. Thank you.
Sir, can you hear me?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay.
Can hear you, and
you can see the screen as well, right?
Yeah,
Okay,
right.
thank you. Thank you. So thanks for this opportunity. And today I'll be talking about warping harness actuator for 30-meter telescope primer mirror segments. And this work we did in collaboration with members a year back. And of course, this work was started around 3 years back when we are in need of very reliable miniature actuators for segment support assembly of TMT primary mirror. Now, today I'll briefly touch upon what are the challenges, what are the requirements, and how we mitigated those challenges to get a very good and reliable actuator for this particular application. So I'll give a brief introduction and then talk about the warping harness of TMT, requirements, design, actuator required for such warping harness, and then how we do the verification testing, followed by reliability demonstration testing. And in the end, I'll give some results, conclusions, and what is the present state of this actuator and how they're being used. So as you know that TMT is going to be world's most advanced and capable ground-based optical and infrared observatory, and it is being built in collaboration with 5 countries, and India is having a major share in this particular construction, and its primary mirror is of 30 meter in diameter, with each of the segment which goes in this is 1.4 meter in diameter, or rather of dimension, with the hexagonal shape and 45 mm thick. Now this thickness is such that we will be able to warp this individual segment while operation, so as to correct for any deformations which have happened during the installation or polishing, residual errors which are propagated after the polishing. So any errors on the individual segment of the telescope can be corrected. So this is how an actual segment looks like. You have a glass clear serum glass mirror, which is supported by a complex mechanical assembly, which is called a segment support assembly. We're going to have 492 of them in TMT telescope. And each of this segment support assembly is having 21 warping harness, which means roughly 10,000 plus warping harness mechanisms will be required for this telescope. And of course, we are going to have a good amount of spares available for replacement during the operation. So in total, we are going to require around 12,000 plus warping harness mechanisms to be developed and used in this telescope. And if we consider the different error budgets which are allocated for telescope, the error budget allocated for corrections through warping harness is one of the major error component, and reliability of this particular warping harness mechanism, along with its stringent technical requirement, becomes a very major concern, and hence detailed testing of these mechanisms is very, very essential, so as to confirm reliability and lifetime. So if we see in detail further, each of this warping harness which goes into SSA is comprised of 21 linear actuators, and the linear actuators are shown over here. This is one single warping harness unit, and there is one linear actuator here, and then there is a leaf spring. So there are 2 types of leaf spring I'll show in the coming slides. This is a straight type leaf spring with a folded mechanism, which means you have this spring arm and again it is folded here. Now this folding effect gives you advantage of better resolution as well as lower force requirement from the linear actuator. And it is having ball link assemblies which will ensure that any linear displacement from this actuator gets translated into a curvilinear motion at the leaf spring. Further, such a 21 ball link mechanisms will be used. So 21 leaf springs, 21 linear actuators, and 21 ball links will be required for such single segment. Now, also you can see here there is a strain gauge, which is a sensor which measures any strain applied on the spring, which will act as a backup, or which will act as a feedback for our linear actuator, because it doesn't have any feedback mechanism in terms of any encoder. So this has to work literally in an open loop mode, but whenever required, we can get a closed loop feedback from the strain gauge. So this is an internal mechanism. As I said, you have a linear actuator with a ball link, and this will push and pull the actuator upward and downward, which will in turn apply moments at this junction, which is installed on the SSA. Now, again, as I mentioned, that we are going to require such 12,000 plus warping harness mechanisms, including leaf springs, motors, and link assemblies. And each of this leaf spring which will go in the telescope will be calibrated. So we'll have a calibration constant for individual leaf springs so as to use the entire mechanism in closed loop whenever required. And typical range of travel for these linear actuators to generate sufficient moments at this point is plus minus 5 mm, which is a quite large range of travel for a linear actuator of this size. And if we see the basic mechanism, the very fact that we require 12,000 of them, which also demands that we cannot have very fancy mechanism and costly mechanism. So hence, we initially chose to use NEMA 14 stepper motor as a main ingredient, and followed by developing linear actuator part on top of it. So, well, today I'll be talking about the actuators. There is a whole lot of story about leaf springs and successful story about the leaf springs, how we successfully managed to develop process required for developing these leaf springs in India. And presently IPA in Bangalore is manufacturing all the leaf springs required for this project. So that itself is another big story, but we'll keep for some other time. But today we will discuss about the linear actuator part. Once it is built in physical sense, it will look like this, and this particular threaded part gets linked with this hole over here, and the other part is kind of a moment arm or moment applying point on the moving frame of the SSA, segment support assembly. So when we see what will be the requirements for such warping harness mechanism, there are all those requirements are listed out here, and typical positioning accuracy requirement to correct any deformation on the mirror surface is listed out here in terms of Zernike shape corrections, and the amount of correction which is majorly required is for focus term, astigmatism term, and trefoil. So when you measure a given focus or astigmatism, we should be able to correct up to 24 times the available focus or astigmatism error on the mirror segment. So that is kind of correction which is demanded from a combination of 21 warping harness on a given segment. And of course, as TMT is having 50 years of life, all the components which are used on this telescope should have 50 years of lifetime, and hence for the actuator too. And as you know that these mechanisms will be continuously working to correct the mirror shape. Of course, we don't correct them in real time, or rather, we don't correct them in continuous manner. We do it in steps. So it is expected that we will need one correction per hour during the operation, which means 10 operations per night. And it is supposed to have very high reliability with very less failure. I mean, typically the failure acceptable from such mechanism is 2 failures per year, which is very stringent, and considering 12,000 of them. And the requirement of in terms of resolution is it should have a distinct 1,000 force resolutions in a given force range, which is of the order of 100 Newton on the telescope. So as you can see here, we need to generate 100 Newton force using this mechanism. It should have very low hysteresis, which means when you're correcting every day you will be applying forward forces and then retracting them as the night passes, and again you will be applying the same type of forces. Now you cannot measure or have a continuous closed loop feedback for such operations. Hence it will be a lookup table based operation for correcting any deformation on the mirror segment with respect to temperature and orientation, and hence it should have very low hysteresis.
Prasanna,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
see that 1 hour, how much it is going to warp, we know from the theoretically?
I mean, in terms of force, I know, which is given over here.
Oh, okay.
It depends on how much temperature change is going to be there. But yeah, here it is.
But the actual, the physical say, we don't know.
Yeah, physical in terms of force, I know easily. It is of the order of 3 Newton meter moment at the pivoting
But I don't
point.
know.
So it is one
Yeah.
third of its range. Yeah, 1/3 of its entire range of operation, basically.
Yeah, but anyway, I will talk to you later.
Yes, yes, yes. In terms
Yeah.
of RMS surface deformation, we'll have to check.
Yes, yes, that's what.
Okay, so as I said, it should have very low hysteresis and it should have very high accuracy in terms of force. So whatever force we are expecting to generate, it should be within 0.5% of the required force, max force applied. And it should have a very good stability when it is unpowered, because when you are powering 12,000 motors of the actuator, it is going to consume a lot of power, and each of this mechanism is supposed to consume roughly around 10 watts of power. So it's going to be huge. So the way it works is in time division mode, in which some set of warping harnesses will be active. So hence, uh, by using which we can reduce the overall power consumption. And yeah, so another thing is it requires large operational temperature range. This is also one of the important thing, because this warping harness mechanism will go in the vacuum chamber during the ion beam figuring as well as coating of the mirror, because this is an integral part of SSA, and hence it should survive all the temperature range, as well as stringent vacuum compatibility is also a key requirement. So when we are evaluating the reliability of these components, we'll have to do vacuum tests as well as operational temperature cycling, etc. And yeah, it should also survive through to the accidental condensation conditions during the observatory. So since it is designed for, since the telescope is designed to be operational in Hawaii, where condensation events are expected, hence it should work between 0 to 100% relative humidity, while the temperature is between -10 to 13. So we have to rigorously do this test and evaluate whether they are able to survive or not. And of course, as I said, when you have so many components, you have to have it very cost effective. So further, in order to, before we actually went ahead for selecting or designing a new actuator altogether, we checked the commercial off-the-shelf components which are or actuators which are available in the market, and we did find a couple of solutions, but they were not meeting any of this reliability requirements in terms of 50 years of lifetime. And the reason for that was many of them were not having the required protection against corrosion, which is one of the important parameter when you are using an actuator for such a long duration. Also, we were requiring it to be waterproof in the sense that water should not enter inside, and it should have uh, sufficient strength at its lead screw so as to withstand the repeated operation, so that wear and tear doesn't happen. So all the possible options were not suitable for this, and we did select one off-the-shelf actuator and tested it. And uh, when we started this test, which is a lifetime testing for around 50 days, on second day itself, the entire test was failed, because we were observing multiple failures, both in actuator as well as leaf springs. Hence, corrective actions were taken, and individually leaf springs were developed further to have a better reliability, and that testing happened in parallel. Whereas actuator testing, actuator actuator required a lot of improvements, and those improvements are listed out here. One of that is having a lead screw coated with ceramic PVD coatings to avoid any wear and tear due to repeated operation, and use of grease for the bearings and the lead screw so that there is a sufficient lubrication. Use of stainless steel bearings instead of the commercially available bearings, which are corrosion prone. Then controlled fill factor of the grease within the bearing, because as if we have more amount of grease, it will have a problem of leaking out, and it is a problem during the vacuum exposure. Then alloy plating on the inside part of the stator and rotor so as to have corrosion resistance, because the conventionally used nickel coating was not sufficient, and we observed significant corrosion. Ingress protection against the external weather factors, use of IP protected connectors, because previously we had selected easily available RJ45 connectors, but now we have JST connectors. Then the lead solder material which is used inside for soldering of the wires, we changed that so as to avoid any whiskering, tin whiskering, and use of low outgassing material, because this entire thing is supposed to be used in vacuum chamber. In addition to these improvements which we listed out, we also defined what should be the electrical parameters of this particular motor, because when we are using them, ultimately what is important is the force which it generates and the range of travel it will provide. So we had a very strict requirement on that as well. And of course, the parameters as small as the weight, which we tend to ignore sometime, but here the requirement of weight of entire assembly of actuator was supposed to be between plus minus 5 gram. And the reason for that is, again, if you have uncontrolled weight and different weights across the telescope, it will have in uncontrolled or unmodeled weight force or parasitic force within the segment, and hence we will not be able to correct it systematically. So while doing the modeling and analysis, all the parameters were restricted to a given tolerance. So as this is an example during the first test, initial test, by using the commercially available components, as you can see, this particular rotor and stator gets corroded because this is having only nickel coating, and this was updated further with a nickel-based alloy, and we were able to get very good corrosion resistance on the new actuators after the test. As you can see here, we have used different type of JST connectors which are IP protected. So we were not expecting any water to leak inside, which we were observing in the previous cases. So that particular correction was also done. And so these, while developing, we wanted a vendor who can manufacture such actuators for us, and we collaborated with Smooth Motor from China, who was ready for supplying and manufacturing so many actuators which are required during the production phase, and they did provide us a lot of prototypes, and of course, present prototype which we are using is almost revision M or so. So yeah, so they really helped us in revising the design of actuator. Further, operational temperature range between 13 to minus 15 degrees Celsius was simulated, and this simulation was done inside the environmental chamber so as to control temperature and humidity. And what we observed is the grease viscosity and grease viscosity index and the fill factor of the grease within the bearing is very important parameter. And if we have little less grease or more grease, the wear and tear factor changes. And as you can see, one of the case where our previous actuator stalled here on one of the operational cycle, and it basically drifts. Now problem is, if the actuator starts drifting, the calibration with respect to its leaf spring gets deviated, and we will need to do a calibration cycle once again, which takes a lot of time considering the expensive operational time of the telescope itself. So we cannot afford to have such a failures while operating. So hence, to get very good protection against such a requirement, such problems, we use something called as PFP greases, which are manufactured by Castrol and Formula. And these greases were used in the bearing as well as they were used on the shaft, which is made up of a special coating, Teflon coating previously. But further, we also noticed that the Teflon coated shafts which are used here, they were also giving away small particles which will get mixed with the grease, and we were experiencing kind of added friction within the motor. So I'll show some images for that as well. In addition to this, we changed the conventional steel bearing. So you can see here, this is a standard bearing which is available, and this is a stainless steel bearing, which you can't see any corrosion after the test. So, and these, while actually manufacturing or while designing the new actuators and testing them, we ensured that we are using commercially available components in it so as to keep the cost less. So this particular bearing is very widely available from NPB. We use them. Further, as I said, in order to avoid any friction on this lead screw which are there inside the actuator, and to avoid any removal of material during the operation, because this operation is very intermittent. Every once in an hour we start this operation. So initially there will be a lot of force exerted on the lead threaded part of this particular lead screw, and hence we wanted to evaluate the performance of lead screws and their coating also. And so hence we came up with different types of coatings on these lead screws. One of that was basically just using the stainless steel lead screw without any coating. Another one was with a black Teflon coating, and 4 more coatings were developed by using PVD based coating technique. And of course, we have named them here as ABCD for the proprietary nature of the coating, which is developed by Smooth Motor. But we did evaluate. They provided us different motors with different shafts, and we did evaluate their performance. And as you can see, the 4 PVD-based coatings, which are named as ABCD, they survived and they could give the repeatable stall force over the different intervals of the test. Whereas the Teflon coated one, as well as the stainless steel lead screw, veered out very fast and was of no use. So hence we selected one of this Teflon coated, one of this PVD coated shaft for our further progress. Yeah. And as I said initially that, yeah, of course, this testing is done at lower temperature where we were experiencing clogging of the greases because of the Teflon particles coming out. So we did do the test at different temperatures as well, at the negative temperature as well as room temperature. And yeah, so all these lead screws were equally lubricated by using this particular PFP grease. So these PFP greases are, their specialty is that they are very good at a wider range of temperatures. So grease will not get frozen down when you are reducing the temperatures. Hence, the specialized greases are required.
Prasanna,
Yes.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
This previous slide, you mentioned that, these are vendor proprietary information, the PVD coating.
Yes.
So
yes.
in future, if, you're required to replace these components, what would be the availability?
Yeah, I mean, so these coatings are developed by sub-vendor of the Smooth Motor, and I mean, yes, that remains as a challenge because ideally Smooth Motor has to provide the entire actuator assembly, which is shown here. So yeah, they have to provide the entire actuator, and the candidate actuator which is qualified for our application uses that coating. Yeah, so due to their commercial interest, they have not disclosed the coating, but what we get out is off-the-shelf motor kind of thing, actuator. Yeah, but you're very right that if suppose that coating vendor stops coating it, it is kind of a small risk for us.
Okay.
And
Thank
yeah, and thing is, you can see the other two candidates, which is a Teflon coating, which was being used by other commercial uh, other quartz vendor, as well as one stainless steel rod or stainless steel lead screw, which is also commonly used without any coating. Both of them were not able to give the required performance, as you can see here. So we had to stop the test in between and continue with the PVD based coatings. Yeah. Of course, they are cost effective, but the proprietary nature is one worry. Yeah, so as I said, that uncoated stainless steel lead screw degraded very rapidly, as you can see here. This, yeah. So all the grease which is there, it gets. Yeah, I think sorry, this is with Teflon coated. So Teflon particles were getting removed, and they were getting mixed with the grease over here, and were creating a clogging effect. Whereas all the all four PVD coatings showed no sign of wear and performs better towards the end, wherein the overall stall force was increasing. Due to it is because of the any what is again what I can say sub roughnesses on the leads were getting smoothened out, and as you can see, this is the lead screw from PVD based coating after the test is completed, and it looks super smooth. This is because of the brushing effect on the lead screw. And yeah, so PVD coating, PVDA was slightly better than other coatings, so all four are suitable, but we used PVDA as a best candidate. Further, these actuators are supposed to withstand for the load, linear axial load up to 100 Newton. Hence, we wanted to preload all these actuators while assembling inside the housing. So hence we evaluated performance of two washers. One is a flat washer and another is wave washer. Both the washers gave equal performance, as you can see from this test. Whereas flat washer was easy to select because it is easy to install as well. And these washers are responsible for holding the outer part of bearing, stainless steel bearing, with respect to the body, and the middle part rotates whenever there is a current flowing through the coil around it. So because of the ease, we selected flat washer, but both are suitable. Now, once you have such a mechanism ready, we did a test called as 2D metrology test at Coherent in USA. And so these actuators which were developed out of this process from Smooth Motor, they were installed on the bottom part of here in the experiment, and the top part you are able to probe the surface of the mirror. And the requirement is that whenever we apply some predefined surface deformations for a given glass mirror, they should be reflected as it is. And as you can see, the bottom ones are basically FEM simulated responses, and the top one color coding is basically from this small spiral shaped points, which is basically surface stitched from the spiral probes which are there in the 2DP setup. And of course, you can't see numbers here, but the difference between both of them in terms of RMS is of the order of 20 to 30 nanometer. So, which is fine, because while doing these corrections, we'll be also having, while calibrating the system in the telescope, we'll also be having a feedback from APS. So, fine tuning will be possible while operation. So, using this test, we confirm that the warping harness mechanism is able to generate required forces and has sufficient resolution so as to get mirror deformation at the output. Further, that was just an operational requirement which is met. Further, we have to ensure that this mechanism is reliable for 50 years of life and can withstand to different temperature, humidity, and vacuum related exposures. So hence we did this RDT testing by using 42 warping harness mechanisms. Now why 42? I'll explain in the next slide. But we prepared such a 42 test setups and installed them in a environmental chamber. Of course, before going to the environmental chamber, we did component level vacuum exposure testing in a vacuum chamber, and followed by these environmental testings. So yes, of course, in order to come up with the test procedure for such RDT testing, we have to consider different effects. For example, when you're shipping these SSAs from here, India to Hawaii, as well as when you're storing them in storage facilities at Hawaii, when you are actually using them in the observatory. So what are the different range of temperatures and humidities that we have to consider? And that particular test cycle is graphically shown here. And what it includes is basically we had to do testing on these actuators for say almost 50 days, which means we are recreating 50 years of testing in 50 days. Hence, it is called as accelerated life cycle testing, and in which we have to run several survival cycles, several operational cycles, and several warping harness load adjustment cycles. Now, what it means is basically you put this entire system in the environmental chamber, switch it on, and keep observing the output strains at the leaf spring, and change the temperature from -25 to 50 degree at relative humidity changed parallelly from 0 to 70%. That is shown over here. So when you're changing the temperature, you're changing the humidity. So we conducted such 48 survival cycles at different intervals of time. So as you can see, each of these test cycles starts with one survival cycle and followed by 12 operational cycles. And in the operational cycle, in total, we conducted 480 operational cycles, which are from -15 to +37 degree. And these are recreating the conditions during the operation of telescope along with the humidity which it will experience. Now, of course, condensation is not directly possible in such tests. So hence we have to create in between condensation events so as to make it more realistic. So hence we used to purge water inside this chamber during when the temperature is low at the lower side, so as to create the condensation events. So we did create those as well at equal frequencies. And there are in total 1,82,000 warping harness adjustments. These are basically the small adjustments which I was talking. So every hour actuator has to do small adjustment, and that adjustment is shown over here. As you can see, from ±5 mm, this actuator has to move. So in total, there is a 10 mm displacement, and each of this is subdivided into 3 sub steps. So that is a expected correction required during the operation. So which means every correction is of the order of 1.5 mm. And 1,82,000 corresponds to its 50 years of corrections. And that is also shown over here in terms of forces. So for conducting this particular testing, of course, we use the readily available environmental chambers but for driving these actuators in the test cycles, we were required to use a specialized test controller, which is shown over here. This was developed in collaboration with SNT in Netherlands, and this is capable of reading the data, logging the data from strain gauges, and commanding the actuators in this predefined profiles. So as I said before that in order to estimate whether our warping harness mechanism is reliable or not, and whether it meets those failure requirements, so one failure per year kind of requirements or not, we have to do accelerated life cycle testing, for which we took help from Guizzo Space in Italy, as well as they collaborated with Joseph Edler, which is another company in Germany, and they did calculations for us for estimating how many actuators can fail if we take a set of say 21 warping harnesses, which is a representation of a single SSA module, or 42 warping harness mechanisms. And in this, how many actuators can fail during this life cycle testing, so as to predict what will be the failure rate during the operation. And when you have 10,000 plus warping harness mechanisms, and when you have realistic temperature conditions. Now, for doing this, we have to change few parameters. One of that is the normal operating temperature versus the temperature which we introduce on the on the accelerated life cycle test hardware. So we had a change in temperature, which is basically a little more aggressive than what is the reality. So in principle, in Hawaii, the temperature during the operation will not go up to 37 or minus 15. So, but we consider this as a acceleration factor. Now, similarly, you put in all different parameters like how many rotations per night are going to be there for an actuator, how much of displacement will be there for the leaf spring, and those acceleration parameters, as well as how many days you want to conduct this test for. So all these factors, when you put in, you will get you will be able to predict what is the reliability of system if 0 actuator fails, if 1 actuator fails, if 2 actuators fails, and what will be the corresponding mean time before failure of a given system. So as you can see here, if we have a setup of 21 actuators, we can, and if there are 2 failures, we get an operational life of 730,000 hours of mean time before failure for that warpingness mechanism. And similarly, you can also calculate when you increase the sample set, the overall mean time before failure will increase if you have same number of failures. So this particular calculation also takes into consideration what is the typical operational duration of warpingness mechanism in 50 years of time. So if we are going with a different site wherein we'll need different corrections due to the different temperature range, this table has to be repeated. So we have one more similar calculation done by these consultants for site in Spain. All right, so this is an overall summary of this test run, and what we found is out of 21 warping harness mechanisms which were subjected to reliability demonstration testing, only 2 actuators failed in the first group. So this is a first group of actuators from that first setup of RDT, in which 2 actuators failed, and in the second group, 1 actuator failed. Now, the reasons for these failures were not obvious because these are something called as intermittent failures. And if we consider the worst case also, in 21 in a set of 21 actuators, 2 actuators being failing, which corresponds to MTBF of 730,000 hours, whereas our TMT requirement for operation is more than 23,000 hours of life from a given actuator. So which proves that this particular mechanism is way more reliable than what we need, and also it meets the requirements. In addition to this, if at all there are such a random failures which are not obvious due to any design change, because if it was the case, we would have expected more number of failures. But such a random failures, we do have bandwidth for correcting them, and we are also allowed to replace a given actuator once in 5 years. So there is a maintenance cycle also for the telescope. So whenever such failures occur, we will remove them out of the loop in the control system, and then we'll replace them whenever we get a maintenance opportunity. So yeah, towards the conclusion, I would like to say that TMT, along with the team across the world, has developed a robust warping harness system, which meets all the M1CS technical requirements. Of course, while talking today, due to the time limitation, I didn't talk about the functionality test, then different capabilities of this warping harness in terms of finding 0 location in terms of dead band, and then stability, which is another requirement. In which if you leave the actuator like that, it should not change its output force for 4 weeks or so. All this kind of test of functionality and performance tests are done. Since they are not reliability RDT related tests, I didn't mention which are RDT related tests are more important than such tests again. Hence, I didn't touch upon them. But all these tests, this actuator was able to pass through, and it has proven to have large margin with respect to its expected lifetime and power dissipation, and hence it can be even used for extended use or extended corrections. Instead of doing correction every hour, if we decide to do corrections every half an hour or 15 minutes due to some stringent requirements during the operation, we will be able to do that. And after this development was done, Smooth Motor was formally qualified for manufacturing all the actuators required for this particular telescope, and now they have started the production of these actuators, and already they have started supplying they have already supplied the first batch of actuator, and second batch is ready, and they will be manufacturing all these 12,000 plus actuators. Whatever the details I mentioned here, as well as the other details which I touched upon, all this material is available in our publication, which was published in SPI conference last year in December. As I said, like Smooth Motor has already started delivering its first batch of actuators, and in order to use these actuators in the SSA, because SSA has its own requirements and it has to perform and function very stringently. So before we utilize any of this off-the-shelf components in a assembly of TMT, we do detailed functionality and quality check for each of these actuators. So hence, we were in need of doing functionality test of all 12,000 actuators. So of course, present setup is not suitable for that, but we have developed a test equipment at ITCC here with the help of our ITCC team, which is capable of doing different functionality test in terms of measuring its stall force, measuring its range of travel, doing some electrical checks like resistance, inductance, and insulation between the coils, so that we can't afford to have a non-conforming part to be installed on the SSA, because that will have a detrimental effect in the assembly. So hence, this particular test setup was fabricated or designed and developed at ITCC just before this present lockdown, and it's already shipped at L&T, and they are using it for conducting the tests. And so far, whatever results we see are within our requirement. And yeah, so this is a team. With that, I thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you very much for the very informative talk. I suppose we are ready to take questions from the audience, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Audience may ask your questions with
hello, I am Abhishek here. Am I?
Yes, Abhishek. Yes, yes.
Yeah, I am from your satellite center. One of your slide, I see that you have told the application is in boundary design. That application, that lubricant.
Oh yeah, boundary level. Yeah. Yes.
Now, since you are using PFP, there are better pieces available for such condition, because PFPs are not, this literature says what we have seen also, it is not very good performance. It has not had good performance in the body. So we have other set of lubricants like cyclopentane. Did you even thought of using such type of greases? Maybe that could have been a better system.
Yeah, I mean, your suggestion is quite right, that if we may use a better PFP grease, the design selection, because yeah, I mean, we observed that there is a problem with this grease, and problem with the previous greases which we were using, and hence we wanted to use PFP, and the choice was left to our developer who is a Smooth Motor, and hence they are quite used to use these kind of greases in their other products, because Smooth Motor is a big company who manufactures all different types of actuators. So hence these were used, and which meets requirement. That's why that is one of the reason why we didn't try anything else. So because already there are so many variables. So but you're right that if we use them, it is just going to improve the system even further. Yeah.
Basically, you left it to the manufacturer because he only has developed the whole motor.
Yes. Because if they are using anything which is commercially available, we don't have issue. Only issue which we were having was with this, as ma'am also indicated, the PVD coating. But here, without this, we were not able to succeed. So hence, we had to accept this. But Apart from that, all that thing they have used is low cost as well as commercially available.
Okay. Just wanted to bring this to you because in our experience, what we have seen, if you go for cyclopentane series of grease, they are better in boundary layer condition. Okay.
Yeah,
that's
definitely.
okay.
I mean, we will definitely note it down, and I mean, whenever we have a similar application, we should be considering that. Yeah, definitely.
Just I wanted information when you call the accelerated live testing, what is whether you have increased the speed of the actuator while doing the testing?
Yes, yes, yes. Because as I indicated that if we leave it to the real life testing, it will actually cost 50 years of life. Whereas we wanted to bring it down much. I mean, bring this operation much smaller. So we did this test for around 45 days, as you can see here, and that also decides what is the acceleration factor. Yeah.
Why I asked this question? Because again, it is almost linked to that grease only. If you increase the speed more than a range, then what happens? The design of lubricant changes. So I hope that the calculation or whatever you told that some calculation was done for the acceleration factor would
Yes.
have taken into this account, because if the design of lubricant change from boundary layer semi that other one semi solid what we call or EHT what we call other design, then your there will be a your system will work much better than actual application speed. So that factor I feel they would have taken care. Just to let you know that we have to keep in mind that also.
Yeah, I got it. I
Acceleration
mean,
should
you
not
want to say is when you are working at a faster rate, these greases are going to work differently than in comparison to the low speed operation. Yes. Yeah.
they will work very means the working condition will be better for green if you work at high rates.
Right.
So there is a calculation for that also. How much factor should be applied? I understand they would have taken care, because you told that there is some software, some calculation was done for the acceleration.
Yeah. I mean, they are the consultant for ESOS, and they're from one. Joseph Fedler, who was also involved into the design of previous SSA. But again, we'll have to check for the details if they have considered this. I'll remember this.
Design should be still in boundary layer, and you have done the accelerated live testing. That should be the thing.
Okay. I'll check with my collaborators here.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. Any other questions, please?
I just raised my hand. Prasanna, very nice talk. The question I have is that you kind of said in between, I mean, I missed that point. You said that in the failure tests, how many, I mean, is it for the actuator or for the leaf spring? There was something like you said that 2 failures per year or something?
Yes. So 2 failures per year for warping harness mechanism, which also means that combination of actuator and motor. Yeah. So whatever the failures which we have observed here.
12,000.
Yeah. So whatever we have observed here is, see, in this warping harness mechanism, we have one failure of actuator and one failure of leaf spring. Yeah. Whereas in the second group, we observed one failure of actuator. Yeah. So it is a combined warping harness failures which we worry usually.
Okay. But if you have 12,000 actuators and 2 failures per year, then you have a huge number to handle, right?
Yeah, but I mean, we do have a, maintenance lot. I mean, there is some margin for maintenance also allotted. So those 2 failures corresponds to.
But if you're expecting, yeah, I understand that. But if you look at the number, you have 12,000 of them.
Yes.
So you expect 24,000 failures in a year, or am I missing something?
Yeah. So what happens is when you're working with a set of 21 warping harness units, 2 failures in the set of 21 corresponds to life of 7,30,000 hours mean time before failure. Okay, so because this is done in accelerated mode where the temperature range is larger than what these components will experience, the speed at which the test is done is faster than what they experience in the reality. The overall life for 12,000 mechanisms will be proportionally higher. So what we can expect is in a given time span of 730,000 hours, you can expect 2 actuators to be failing in total, basically, because this is done in accelerated mode.
Yeah, I understand. But when you said the number of 1 in 2 in 1 year, that particular thing is not very, I'm not able to understand. So if you're, I mean, I just want to make sure that you don't have too many failures per day per actuator, because then the looking into the maintenance
yes.
will be overwhelming, right?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. So basically what we want is
doesn't scale
the
like
first,
that.
yeah, first failure as per requirement, first failure we can expect after 23 hours of operation. That is in the entire system. Whereas what it is giving is 730,000 hours. Yeah.
Okay, and the second question I have is that what is the mechanism for monitoring its health? Because you have a huge number.
During the operation, is it?
Yeah. Once you have deployed it, and one needs to monitor its health to figure out which one is about to fail. I mean, you don't want to wait for something to fail and then go and replace it, right? So what is the plan for monitoring its health?
I mean, there will be a software-based health check only, because there is no real-time monitoring as such from external sensor or so. So what you basically do is in the controller of these warping harnesses, you can pre-program some logic which says that if you are moving the actuator by 1 mm, I'm expecting minimum range of travel of in terms of strain gauges. So you have this feedback from strain gauges, right? So if you're not getting the corresponding displacement as the strain here, so the way it works is basically when you are moving the actuator by 1 mm, you expect some change in the strain here. So suppose this link is broken. If you are moving the actuator but nothing is moving here, this particular strain gauge will not move. So that is the only check we have here. Of course, during the calibration,
that is the only mechanism which can
monitor.
That is the only mechanism. Yeah, we need to monitor. Okay.
Yes. So you might be remembering that there was a diagnostic software related activity.
Yeah. That is
longer
what,
back.
yeah.
So there also the
Yeah.
same thing. These parameters will be one of the monitoring parameters in that diagnostic software.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions? Not, I would like to ask a couple of questions to Prasanna.
Yes.
One is, this actuator is very close to the mud, and of course, what is the very sensitive also to heat? So, what is the heat output from each actuator? You said a few watts for the electric power, so typically about 90% efficiency.
Yeah, I mean, because they work very intermittently, as such, you can't have a major this thing. But yeah, 10 watt of power will be required during the operation of each warping harness unit. So
could be around 1 watt when it's operating.
Yeah.
Could be around 1 watt when it's operating, right?
Yeah, during the operation only. Rest of the time it is off only, anyways. And the operation overall duration of operation is 6 seconds. So every time every hour when you are waking up for correcting the system, it just remains on for 6 seconds. And that too, we don't do all the corrections in one go. So we do it in phased manner. But yeah, we'll have to see thermal model for this telescope to know how much effect is there on the image quality or turbulence or so.
Being a stepper motor, do you keep it on all the time to have a holding torque, or is it the the magnetic torque that is going to hold the car? You switch it off when you're not in operation.
Yeah. So once the correction is done within 6 seconds, we just cut the power for these actuators. Yeah. So because there is a lead screw which has sufficient holding torque during the operation.
Right. The second question I had is that I saw the figure you mentioned for the environmental testing, 0 to 70% RH. So 0, okay. Any ESD issues during testing, and if so, what did you do to prevent that?
ESD, is it?
Yeah, well, there is 0%, 0 to 70% user. Where the lower range is lesser than 30% itself, we will have ESD issues starting.
No, I mean we didn't experience any. Yeah, we didn't experience any such issue. Of course, the body of this leaf spring is connected. Is all the bodies of this each of the leaf spring is connected through this cable to the grounding plane, but we didn't experience any drift in the strain gauges or so. Yeah.
Any sort of arcing effect or anything when you switch on and
No.
switch off? Or something?
No. We didn't experience that. Yeah. Of course, this is aluminium. Most of the material is aluminium here, so
Okay.
conductive
And
part is.
this ESD, I mean the connection path, is it metallic connection path? Is it the same path for the heat also to go through? Is it more through convection? Because the convection will be very slow there because of the rarer atmosphere at 5,000 meters above sea level for Hawaii. Must be mostly through convection or maybe radiation, right?
Heating, is it?
The heat, how is the heat flowed? In fact, if there is some heat, must be only
Oh,
convection.
in the testing phase, is it?
No, the telescope itself. I don't remember.
Oh no, so it is basically just a convection kind of thing. Yeah, so heat will just get dissipated. That
Convection will
there is no special cooling.
Not cooling. The conduction path. You said that you have an ESD, it is all connected as metallic and all. So is it through the same metallic circuit that the heat is also taken away? That would be interesting to know.
Yeah. I mean, most of the parts which require active heat dissipation, those are done through different. I mean, they have a cooling mechanism, but I mean that is mostly for the electronics which goes in the mirror cell. But here it is just heat dissipating in the. I mean, just normal heat dissipation in the air. Kind of thing. Yeah.
The quantity being small, I think conduction itself can be taken. Thank you.
Yeah, but I'll definitely check it. Maybe I didn't answer that quite well. I'll
No.
check.
The point is, see, there is a metallic path through which you have the ESD protection done. So the same metallic path can also conduct away the heat. Thank you.
I'll that, yeah.
Any further questions, please? There are no further questions. Let us once again thank Prasanna for a very informative talk, and thank you all for your patient listening and participation. Thank you. Bye.
Yeah. Thank you everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Prasanna.
Thank you.